Welcome back. My name's Todd Belfer, and I am the host of The Laundry List here with my co-hosts Blake and Charles. How you guys doing?
Todd, I returned to a different city than the one I left. Just
Charles,
being gone for 3 weeks.
He was in Florida for 3 weeks for the softball championships, and boy, he was missed. We it wasn't the same.
Glad to be back. Glad to be back, and the weather is perfect.
Yeah, the weather turned the last couple of weeks.
We couldn't find a replacement for you, Charles. That's why you're still here. So
yeah, we had Soraya.
I know you tried though. Yeah,
we tried.
She actually was really excited. She had questions for our last guest. She was all excited, and she was like, "I really like this. I want to be on." I'm like, "Well, you're the alternate. You're the alternate. So if any of us can't make it, Soraya's in."
Perfect.
So we have a guest today who I just met like 2 weeks ago. Very special woman. No, the guest today is a good friend of mine who I met in 1996. And she became my wife, the mother of my children, my ex-wife, my potential future wife. No, I'm just kidding. Don't have to edit that out. And
getting edited.
She's a good friend. She's a good friend, and we get along famously. And very excited to have her. So please welcome Julie Belfer. Oh, before we actually introduce Julie, I forgot. See, we took a week off, so I got a little fog brain. Before we start with Julie, we have to read the laundry list, which are the traits that we are working on this podcast. So Charles, would you please read the laundry list?
For our guests, if you can identify with any of these, keep listening. Tune in every week. If you can't identify with these, then watch something else or listen to something else. But right now, these are the traits from the laundry list. Number 1, we became isolated and afraid of people and authority figures. Number 2, we became approval seekers and lost our identity in the process. Number 3, we are frightened by angry people and any personal criticism. 4, we either became alcoholics, marry them, or both, or find another compulsive personality such as a workaholic to fulfill our sick abandonment needs. 5, we live life from the viewpoint of victims, and we are attracted by that weakness in our love and friendship relationships. 6, we have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, and it is easier for us to be concerned with others rather than ourselves, and this enables us not to look too closely at our own faults. 7, we get guilt feelings when we stand up for ourselves instead of giving in to others. 8, we became addicted to excitement. 9, we confuse love and pity and tend to love people we can pity and rescue. 10, we have stuffed our feelings from our traumatic childhood and lost the ability to feel or express our feelings because it hurts so much. And that's also known as denial. 11, we judge ourselves harshly and have a very low sense of self-esteem. 12, we are dependent personalities who are terrified of abandonment and will do anything to hold on to a relationship in order not to experience that painful abandonment feeling, which we receive from living with sick people who were never there emotionally for us. 13, alcoholism is a family disease. We became para-alcoholics and took on the characteristics of that disease, even though we never picked up a drink. And 14, para-alcoholics are reactors rather than actors.
Thank you, Charles. That's excellent. Well done. Yeah, I remember when I read that for the first time 3.5 years ago. I'm like, wow, that's never even thought about those kind of questions. But we have a very special guest today, Julie Belfer, and she is very, very gracious and nice enough to come on and be vulnerable and share with you guys some of her lessons, some of her experience, some of her trials and tribulations in this life, and what's worked for her and what's not worked. So we'll just get into it. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you. I'm happy and nervous to be here. So we'll see what happens.
Well, we're glad you're here. And at one point this week, I was going to have Alex, who's my current wife, come on and be the co-host. But I'm like, you know what? 2 women, one I was married to, one I am married to, co-host on the same podcast with me. That nothing good can happen out of that. Don't you guys agree? Nothing. I think I made the right choice. Like, there's no way that's going in the right direction. No. So I'm glad I got my boys here with me here, Charles and Blake, to hold me up. So yeah, welcome. And So I guess, what I have nothing planned, no agenda, but what comes to my mind is something that you said probably a year or maybe even 2 years ago. And it really stuck with me. And I've thought about it many times since you said it to me, because I felt the same way. Is when we ended the marriage and you started doing a lot of work on yourself. Can we get some tissues? I could already tell we're going to need some tissues.
I was just looking on the table for him, actually. Thank you for asking for that.
Usually I don't need them, but I can feel the tears are going to come today.
This is great.
So when we were talking about, you didn't realize how broken you were until after we separated and after we got divorced. See, we pay a lot of money to get this podcast, and we get a roll of toilet paper. Not even double ply; it's like single ply.
It's the expensive stuff.
Brian, come on, Brian, what is this? Where's the Charmin?
I think it still works.
So we talked about like how broken, you were talking about how broken you were, and I remember we met at Starbucks not too long ago, and we talked again about that.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And
that.
then I was thinking like, wow, I didn't realize how broken I was, and had no idea, really who I was, where I was going, until we kind of broke up, and then the work started, because I think then I was all alone. I think when we were married, it was like,
yeah,
I could hide behind the marriage. I could hide behind you. I could have you help support me, build me up, and then vice versa. And it's like, being in a marriage, I don't have to look too closely at myself. And it's like, once we're out of the marriage, like I'm all alone. Like it's me.
Yeah, that was important for me too.
So could talk a little bit about your experience of like when we decided to separate and the feelings that came up, and when you started to look at yourself and the pain that came along with that, and how'd you start going on the road of recovery to that?
Right. Well, I think when we came to that point, we decided we were going to get divorced. At that point, let's see, I knew how disassociated I was from my own emotions and my feelings. And so I knew that I needed to get in touch with myself. And the way the dynamic of our relationship was that in our relationship, I became so outwardly focused on you. So then it became really hard for me to realize who I was without being externally focused, or I needed to almost, I'll say, bring myself down to zero. I needed to cut out all the noise, because in the dynamic of our relationship was that I was always watching you to see which way the wind was gonna blow, to see where you were coming from. I would say that I felt very much like a weather forecaster, because you have so much energy and you were so dynamic, and you'd be here and you'd be there. And in determining, for me, I would look to see where you were going to be, to kind of see what was happening. And in that way, I was so focused externally, I became, over those years, more and more disassociated from myself. And in that watching, kind of being like a leaf in the wind, the way that I coped in that way was disassociating from my feelings, to not care which way the wind was blowing. Sometimes you'd come home and you'd say, we're going to do this, it was super exciting. I loved it, we were going to do this. And I thought, great. And then the next day or a week later, you'd come home and you'd be like, we're selling everything. It would be just complete opposite. And I'd say, what are you talking about? That we're going to do this. And you're like, what? Are you crazy? And so, living with you was always exciting, but it was just so unpredictable. And in that way, I learned to anticipate that, and also to numb myself from caring from which way the wind blew.
And how did you numb yourself or disassociate from yourself?
I chose to not care. I chose to just, I thought I was doing the right thing. Like, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't care. It's fine. And in that way, I just, sort of became more and more just existing through life and not caring. So, you remember I got sick and I wasn't even paying attention to what that meant or why that was happening or what was going on with my life. But if someone looked at me, I remember this girl, Kathy, saying, "Oh, Julie's so cool, nothing ever gets her riled up." But really, truly, I was just existing. I wasn't attached. I really didn't feel anything. I didn't feel high. I didn't feel low. I was just sort of coasting through. So by the time we decided to get divorced, I knew I needed to get in touch with myself. I knew that I had to cut out all the noise, as I said, take myself back down to zero and figure out who I was, what my vibration was without accommodating anyone else or, watching anyone else or being around anyone else. And so that actually took about 2 years for me to figure that out, to go through all the phases of, just what that took. And so, I know our paths to healing have been very different, but we talk a lot, and I feel like that last conversation we had at breakfast, we're kind of in the same place, even though we took different routes to get there. And so,
I agree.
Yeah.
What was shocking to me is because we've been together for 24 years, 22 of them married, that I didn't have a clue on how broken or detached you were until you told me. And then also, I didn't realize how broken and detached I was until I ended the marriage and started doing the work. Even when I read the laundry list, I remember when I started reading it for the first time, I started crying. I didn't realize how broken. And I think we hit it well because we had money. And when two broken people are together, they can hide each other's insecurities and their shortcomings. And I think we did a really good job. And plus, parenting, money, and being social, I think you can hide a lot of stuff. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to feel. You don't have to know what you stand for. You don't have to and I think we did a really good job of on the surface looking like it all was figured out. And we had 2 kids and a beautiful house in Arcadia and we were social and, charitable and blah, blah, blah. But I don't think you or I had a clue over all those years that we were really 2 very broken people in a codependent relationship that were just trying to survive, but we had coping mechanisms to get through it, and it took us separating to realize, wow,
Well, yeah, I mean, also, you were my best friend, so why would I want to, I didn't want to leave you. And it's not like there was a lack of love between us. And so you're my best friend and I loved you. And so, but I was just existing through life and so detached from myself that at some point it was I had to choose myself or it was just going to get worse. I mean, I just don't even know where it would have gone. So it just kind of got to that point where the pain was so great that, I just had to, that's how I put it back then to you. I remember I just had to choose myself because I was getting sick and it was affecting all areas of my life.
And I look at you now and it's you've made other choices, as I have. And I was just talking about this morning to my therapist. You've made other choices outside of our relationship and our marriage that have better served you and better fit for who you are in today's world. Whether that's relationships with family or with friends or with career or whatever it may be, you've chose a different path than you have in the past. I guess with where I'm sitting, you're less of a people pleaser. You're less of a just chameleon trying to fit in, and you're doing kind of what you want to do and what fits for you. You're finding your voice, you're finding your morals, your ethics, and kind of who you want to be.
Oh yeah, I serve myself so much better from this place that I'm at now. And that path to it was so great. I mean, I loved, it kind of coincided with the pandemic, but those years, that year and a half was just the most important time of my life and that I was turned inward. So the fact that the world was in a pandemic sort of was in alignment with where I was. Everybody was sort of isolated. And And I really love that journey, and I love where it's brought me. And I would say that I really, the way I did it was I really just had to take a deep look at myself. But how was I going to do that? Because I was so, again, disassociated. I just didn't even, I was just not, could not even relate to what my emotions were. I couldn't cry. I couldn't cry at all. I couldn't cry for years. My chin would start to cramp up if I was going to start crying. And that would cause me more pain than wanting to cry. And so it was like my body would stop me from crying. And so I just had so much work to do. And I think before, we got divorced, I started to get interested in plant medicine. And so that was kind of, after a year of really sitting with myself and, and going to therapists, I started to look into doing more plant medicine. And to me, that was just like a game changer for me. And really, I would say has brought me to this place more than anything else, any other work that I'd done in that space of time, for sure.
So when I hear you say that you couldn't cry and your chin would, protect you.
Do you remember that? How my chin would do that?
Yeah. And what comes to my mind when you do that, and again, this is where our journeys have been a little different from the healing of when we split up, is I did a lot of childhood work. And I remember as a kid, and I probably cried more in the last 2.5, 3 years than I have my entire life, for sure, without a doubt. And I remember as a kid, I was not allowed to cry. Like when I was crying, my dad or mom would say, "You better stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about. Go to your room.
Yeah, very.
You're not being great. You're not grateful." Like whatever they said. And it's funny because I probably said that to Bond and Cray, our kids. But it wasn't encouraged and allowed really for me to just let out my tears and emotions. Mm-hmm. And the work I do now and the friends I have now and the therapists I have now and, my environment today encourages me to cry and feel my feelings. Mm-hmm. And it's such a different perspective than I had when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, when it really wasn't looked upon as a good thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's common with people our age because our parents, that generation, it was kind of like, I'll give you something to cry about,
right,
type of thing. Or I remember crying in my family was seen as like having a weakness or being sappy. Like that was the word that was used around my family. So, and so we just kind of I don't know.
You just hide it. You suppress it.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I just couldn't cry. And now I can cry. And now I love, it's like my favorite thing is to cry because my face doesn't hurt. And it just, it just feels so good to not let those things build up and then come out in other ways that they used to. So, yeah.
So you're saying some of the healing you've done is through plant-based medicine. And I know you did some hypnotherapy. You've done a lot of mantras, meditations.
Yeah,
so
affirmations.
Talk about affirmations.
Yeah,
talk about a little bit about your journey and how you sort of put yourself back together again, like one brick at a time, one day at a time.
Well, I think it started with the affirmations. My first counselor told me about it. I'd never done them before, but those were what got me through the divorce period. And I actually think that's like the magic of our relationship. That's like the golden story of our relationship, how we navigated that because, it could have gone so many different ways. And I feel like we really came together on that and kind of had a vision, or at least I did. I had a vision.
Yeah, I was not with you, but I was behind you on that.
Yeah, I had this vision. So this counselor gave me this, told me to do this list of affirmations. And one of them was that, you and I were going to transform our relationship and that we were going to be something better than we ever have, something better to each other. And so...
Is this your real counselor or is this Tabash?
No, this was a real counselor.
Okay.
This was one of the first ones. And so that along with, the affirmations of things that I wanted for myself, those were like my lifeline during the divorce, because I wanted that so badly. I mean, I wanted all the things for myself so badly, but I didn't want our divorce to be steeped in like resentment, victimhood, denial, all these things. I knew we could be something else. It was so crazy. It was like I had this vision. It was probably like the first vision really I ever had. Like I knew what we could be. And so like, regardless of any evidence to the contrary, I held on to that through the, that year, 2 years when you were maybe not with me. I just knew we were going to get here where we are today. And when I was alone, not with my best friend, when I was alone for those 2 years, it was like that, was my lifeline as far as like for my family, what I wanted, for the kids and for you and I and, our future relationships. And I remember that you and I told the kids when we were getting divorced that their family was just going to grow. And so I just had that in my head the whole time. And it was like a mantra that I would repeat to myself, as well as all the other, beautiful things that I was, wanting for myself as well. So I would say that was the first. And then it was, sort of just getting used to who I was. Like, what did I feel like without having to, accommodate anyone else's needs? And I'm not saying people made me accommodate their needs. That was my choice. What I did in our relationship was my choice. It was our dance, but, I take full responsibility for, what happened and what, my part of it. And so anyway, so I spent about a year doing that. And then I started sitting in some plant medicine sessions, some ayahuasca sessions. And that was like incredible. That was like a decade worth of therapy, in 4 hours because have either of you guys ever done it? Mm-hmm. It's like having X-ray vision. What happens for me in my journeys, I'll say, is that suddenly it's like having a life review. Suddenly, all of a sudden, I'm looking at scenarios of relationships, and you don't just see them from your perspective. You see them from everyone's perspective at the deepest level. It's like you're looking past the surface drama of what you remembered happening, and you're looking at the deep emotions of each person. And you can see the love or the relationship to the love they felt within that context, within that exchange. And so it was like I could see the truth of myself, I could see the truth of others, and I could see the love that permeates all things. Truly, even if it is a considered a horrible event. And so seeing that really actually helped me connect to my emotions even more, helped me understand them. And so that really served me in a lot of ways. And, now I'm just really mindful of that.
Yeah, I know you mentioned COVID, and I remember you moved back in the house. You were living out in California, in Laguna Beach, and I remember you moved back in April for the whole month, and I'm like just starting my healing process, and like from the abandonment. You guys know what I'm talking about, the abandonment feeling, like just like can't sleep, losing weight, like life's just speeding me by. I'm not in the moment. I'm just like trying to get by one day at a time because I have this massive feeling of abandonment, massive feeling of a hole in my heart, like I can't breathe, and I'm just starting to heal. And then Julie's like, yeah, I'm moving back in. I'm like, at first I'm like, oh no. And then I'm like, oh, thank God. Right. It's like, I feel some comfort. I feel safeness. I feel warmth. And I remember, and we actually had a lot of fun. We actually slept in the same bed, and
we had played dominoes every night.
Yeah, it was fun. We had
so much pizza.
Yeah, we had a couple of friends living with us. Our kids were living there, so it was actually fun. But I remember it's like, it stopped the healing a little bit because she moved back in, and I don't think you can heal until you feel the feelings. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling the feelings before she left. Before she moved back in. And then when she left, I remember after she left, I'm like, oh, yeah, here they are again. Welcome back. And I had to live through those and pray and meditate and just know that they're just feelings and they will pass. And I'm going to be okay. And for me, I don't. We talk about being broken, but like even behind being broken for me is self-esteem. Am I ever going to meet someone that I'm going to have a relationship with, who I'm going to have fun with, that I'm going to laugh with, that I can banter and tease with, like that is going to be attractive, like all these things? Like in my mind, the answer is absolutely not.
Never.
You're not going to have it, Todd.
That's right.
And it's like amazing how I have to change my mindset that, yeah, it is possible. I can find somebody else to be my best friend, to laugh with me, to be my partner in crime in life. And that was part of the healing, to really believe that someone else out there I can be with romantically and not be so scared to get back into a relationship. Because I know for me, I don't know if you felt this way, but like I started to like, okay, I'm going to date a lot, but I'm not going to get too close because I don't want to get hurt again.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to date at all.
Yeah, I think that healing is in that gap. I think for most codependents, the relationship ends after another one has begun, right? And in that gap of actually sitting in it and being alone, which it sounds like you did, I know you did, I have been, that's where the healing begins. And it is painful. It is the worst.
It's painful.
Yeah, because
I used to sit on the couch when I was living at Perry's when we were separated. And I remember my friends would tell me, Todd, just sit on that couch and be uncomfortable. Just sit there for hours. No phone, no TV. Just sit there with your thoughts and just get through it. And I would sit on that couch for 2 hours, just unbearable pain, knowing I can't fix this relationship. I can't get her back. I can't make it work. And a lot of it was shame. A lot of it was abandonment. A lot of it was like guilt. Oh shit, how'd I fuck this up? What'd I do? I mean, there was so much emotion in there. But I would just listen to people. Okay, I'm going to sit on the couch for hours until this feeling passes.
Yeah.
And literally hours. Just sit there.
You had a lot of support. You had a lot of friends rally around you, and that was beautiful. And I did too, as much as I would allow, but I really just went in. I spent a lot of time by myself. And
it was you and Wilson. It was you and Wilson.
It was, right? During the pandemic, I had a soccer ball. and like you, it was really uncomfortable, super uncomfortable. And it was almost like I kept turning behind me because I kept thinking, what am I forgetting? I was forgetting not just, being in a relationship, but I was forgetting that I was, I'd been always focusing on other people and there was nobody else to focus on. And that was so uncomfortable for me. I kept wanting to distract myself with something, but I didn't. And I think that's why I really isolated myself. So I just couldn't revert to doing that in any way. And, but yeah, it is uncomfortable. It was.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys.
Yep.
As you were describing elements and components of your marriage, it brought back some memories of mine, very similar to your guys. I love the weather forecasting analogy, right? And I'm very similar to Todd, high energy. I would come home with wonderful claims and a week later they'd be the world is over.
Right. Yeah.
So it's okay, is it a hurricane or is it sunny and beautiful outside, right? So I love that analogy, but my question to you guys is, you just admitted broken. I was broken, my wives were broken, right? Detached from ourselves individually, focusing on the other, right? Not a healthy relationship. Would you guys prop up the relationship externally to make it look like it was great? I'll give you an example. We have some wonderful family photos. And I look back at those, and each time for these two sets of family photos, we drove separately. And like the day before, I'm saying, it's over, I'm out, we're done. But the pictures are great, right? And we would put on this appearance externally and people, and then immediately should post them. And we get comments. I wish I had a relationship that looked like yours, right? You guys obviously have this loving relationship. And I remember hating her in the pictures, right? But it almost was hearing that you have the perfect relationship. I kept it going longer, right? It's that power of approval seeking, right? It's that power of people pleasing. And ultimately it was just, did you guys prop up yours as well?
Well, I'm a master at that too.
Propping up?
Well, I'm a master.
Promoter.
I'm a master. I'm a promoter. I'm a sales guy. I mean, I'm a guy who can sell you anything. And so I think on social media and the optics to the outside world is like, there are no problems inside of this household. Like it is perfect. It's the Truman Show. It's Leave It to Beaver. Like it is everything's amazing. And I didn't want anyone to see that there were any, warts or any kind of, discomfort, whatever in the relationship. Like it's perfect. So that's why I think one of the reasons I had such a hard time with it is like I was mortified and so ashamed that the outside world's going to know, oh shit, Todd couldn't figure it out. Todd couldn't put it together. Todd failed. Todd's a bad person. Mm-hmm. Todd's not a good husband. Todd's not a good lover.
Yes.
Todd's, doesn't know how to be intimate with a woman. Like all these things came up and I just went down this spiral of shame and I'm a piece of shit. And it really was very painful, but it was very real because I did try to make it look like everything was perfect.
So the focus is on that instead of actually getting that.
Yes.
Did you do the same? Do things to give the appearance of something different than what both of you guys just described?
Yes, but I think it felt different for me because I didn't know what was wrong. I had no idea what was. I was just like existing. I just was so disassociated from everything. But I remember, some friends, they would say, oh, I wish we had a relationship like you and Todd. And in that way, I do understand that because like you were saying with your wife, like you wanted, what did you say? Like the day before you were like,
I'm done.
Yeah, you're done or whatever. It's just, maybe for myself, it was an anomaly. Like I never hated him. I was never mad at him. I was never like, I'm done. We never went through that phase. 6 months, right? We never did. We're done. It was just like I suddenly woke up and for myself, woke up out of my stupor, out of my zombiness, and I said, I have to choose myself here. And then it was like, I love you, but I have to choose myself. Like I can't keep functioning in this relationship. And so there was never about like a back and forth or a big well up. For me, it was just suddenly like I opened my eyes to myself and thought, I can't go on.
And then your personal journey began.
Yeah.
Todd, what's crazy for me is those very pictures, even though I was miserable that day or miserable at that time, like literally drove in separate cars to take them when it ultimately was ending and over. Those are the same very pictures I would look at and go, oh my God, I miss her, I need her. It's like, do not forget how you felt in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, I would always, and I remember when I was trying to convince her, like, no, we have to make this work. Like, you're out of your fucking mind if you think we're getting divorced.
Because of what others would think?
Well, others would think, but also, like, in my mind, like, I only thought of all the great stuff. I never thought of anything bad. I never thought of anything that potentially could be bad. I was always like, well, what about the family? What about the holidays? What about grandkids? What about our vacations? What about the dogs? I tried to I was doing everything I could to protect the potential abandonment that would come with ending a relationship, the most important relationship in my life, for sure. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm not going to go feel those feelings and have that abandonment. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to protect it. So I was trying to sell. I remember we'd go see Richard, my therapist, and she would start telling her side of the story, and I would stop her and start over speaking and over talking and saying, no, you're wrong. You don't understand. And then Richard would be like, Todd, let her talk. And I'm like, I couldn't even let her talk because I needed to set the narrative. I needed to make sure I had to fix this and I'm going to take it over. This is a business deal and I'm not failing, period. And like I said, I had no idea how broken she was and how alone and lost she was. And I had no idea I was so lost and broken. And then I started reading and talking about it. And I don't think it's possible, from what I understand, to have a codependent relationship where there's an attachment where you don't have two broken people. Mm-hmm. Interdependent relationship is where you have two whole people that come together and love each other, but are fine walking out the door. Mm-hmm. Like they're okay.
Remember when we went to go to that one therapist, you had brought us to him, and he was yours. So I didn't understand he couldn't be mine because it was a conflict because he was yours. And it was a setting where there was a whole bunch of therapists. I can't remember. It's like a name over in Old Town Scottsdale. But he asked me, he's like, who do you want to be your therapist? And I said, well...
Oh, Marcus, right.
And I go, well, you're fine. And you said to him, you're like, take it. That's as good as it's going to get. Because I was just so ambivalent about, choices and things like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a $400 an hour, session. But it's like amazing because, I look at my parents and it's like married 60 years or coming up on 60 this year. And like, everyone's, oh God, they're just living the dream. They're so happy. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I lived there for 18 years. I mean, maybe, but I don't see it, and it's like, just because people have 60 years or 22 years, or it doesn't mean that they're living the dream. It's like they are loyal no matter what. And I think I was loyal no matter what until Julie brought to the surface all these issues and all these things. And I'm like, what point does the loyalty give no matter what? And you look out for yourself and your own personal growth. It's that conflict because the family and loyalty is very strong in my DNA and with me, like very strong. Like I'm not letting anybody go in my life. My kids,
I don't think I would have surfaced. I don't think I would even have allowed myself to realize I was disassociated. Do you remember this coincided with like our youngest being in his senior year? Like somehow the idea of me choosing myself, I think, there was no accident that it coincided with our youngest getting ready to go off to college. It wasn't purposeful, but what I'm saying is I think my sense of loyalty and duty to the family was also in play there in not allowing me to take a look at how removed I was from myself for those years, Right. And then there was, so many, not so many years, but 5-6 years there where I was just getting sicker and sicker, and my body was developing all these autoimmune diseases, and I was just, my response would be, oh, I guess that's just me now. I wouldn't even just consider that it was possibly being affected by my feelings or anything. It was just, it amazes me now as I look back on myself then what I allowed for, not from anyone else, but just for myself. It's shocking to me sometimes when I think about it.
Yeah, and then I know for me, when anything would happen to you or the kids, I would take that on as my fault. I did something wrong. When the kids were in pain, the kids had, trouble, Julie had trouble, illness, whatever it is, it's my fault, it's my job to fix it. And if I can't fix it, then I'm a failure and I'm no good. And it's amazing how I take that on myself. But it's, it's a progress. It's a process. And when I look at the relationship, we talk a lot about having 2 dates and then the U-Haul.
What's that mean?
Well, like it's an AA slogan, kind of like, we have a couple dates and then the U-Haul shows up at the house because she's moving in.
First date, Starbucks or dinner. Second date, U-Haul.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that's not my saying. That was said before me.
And I think you moved in within a week or two.
I started to.
You had a sock
for
drawer.
Sure.
And,
I did.
And I don't think that's
extra place I could
and I don't
stuff.
think that's healthy. Now that I've done the work and looking back, it's like I look at it like, okay, I met this really cute girl. She's having sex with me. She looks good. She fits my lifestyle. Move in.
Yes.
Take care of me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I want to become the kid again. You take care of me.
And don't ever leave.
And boy, did you take care of me, because I was a train wreck when you moved in and I was drinking, and you really had to, take care of me, because I would get so drunk, I'd lose my car. I would say very hurtful things. I would cause destruction. And, you were a real champ. But, I always say I've learned more in my life from our relationship than any other relationship I've ever had in my life, for sure. Mm-hmm. My boys, my parents, Alex, anybody.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
And you gave me the greatest gift of having 2 wonderful boys. And you also gave me the greatest gift of helping me get sober, or really telling me I'm getting sober. Because if it wasn't for you, I don't know if I would have chose that road. I think I would have just fine. Let's divorce when Grayson's, born, and you'll, raise him. I'll see him when I see him, and I'll just continue to drink. with my drinking buddies. And when you gave me that gift of, and that's where the codependent really served me.
You gave yourself that gift though, because
I did, but you said
I relate to that.
You're leaving. You're not putting up with it anymore. When you got pregnant and you saw me for what I was when I was drinking, and the alcoholic I became, you were like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And I didn't want to lose you. And I just made that decision that I am going to, I made the decision I'm going to hide out in AA for a while and get you off my back. But something happened when I went, and I started finding that peace, and I started finding the truth, and I started finding I don't have to live 2-3 different lives, that I can be the person I want to be when I go to AA. And then the miracle started happening slowly. So thank you for that. That was a gift beyond gifts, because now I've been sober half my life almost, and I absolutely love it.
You're so welcome. I mean, I'm happy to have been a part of that for you, and the way you moved through it. You didn't go back and forth, which is a lot of people's stories. In and out, in and out. You really stuck to it, even though there was a lot. That was a painful transition in that way. You losing, changing friends and discovering yourself and being authentic. So, the way you did it is so commendable. And how many years do you have now? What is it?
24 years in January.
Yeah, that's incredible.
No friends.
What'd you say?
No friends.
No friends, right?
God, I would have loved to have met 1996 Todd.
Oh my gosh.
I think we would have been best friends.
I was such a douche. I mean, I was like the massive egomaniac with an incredible inferiority complex. The scared little boy that thought he was like the man.
Yeah.
Ferrari.
Yeah, but I could see that scared little boy in you, and it was funny. Like, I think you're drinking, it would make you, have these like tics that like once you stopped drinking, they were gone. It was so interesting.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Like the hair and the nose. Yeah. I did have a lot of tics when I was drinking.
But after you stopped, they just kind of just all fell away really quickly.
So let's talk about parenting and raising kids, and how unprepared and what a whirlwind that is, raising young kids.
Oh my gosh. and boys, and just our DNA, the combination of our DNA. We had crazy, beautiful boys, but I felt fully unprepared. Once they became toddlers, and I felt very ill-equipped. And
well, then with Bond, you had your thyroid stopped working, so you had no energy. And that was, but I think one of the biggest things, and I know a lot of people talk about this, is the way we were raised by our parents. The way I was raised by my parents was different than you were raised by your parents, and the roles within were reversed,
and so. It was so me being the heavy. My friend calls it the heavy, or the what do you call it? The
disciplinarian.
The disciplinarian. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say it because I didn't want to be that, but I had to be that.
And it's very common in Jewish households. Like in Jewish households, the mother is the hammer.
Yes.
And it was very clear in my family. My mom was the hammer, without a doubt, and my dad was the friend and sort of like in the background, and made the money. And that was, the role I saw. Like, okay, I'm going to be their friend. I'm going to be their coach. And mom's going to take care of all the behavioral issues. And
Mom yells and screams, and you come in, it's okay. It's okay.
And she's looking at me like, okay, your turn. And we're looking at each other, pointing the finger, going, no, this is your job. And she's like, no, Todd, do something. And it's like, it was that was a perfect example of having different upbringings.
Oh, totally.
And no one's right or wrong. It just was different.
No, it just was. I remember saying to the boys, don't you disrespect your father? With my hands on my hips, and I'm like, what is going on? Who am I? And it was just, so, we got through it, and I remember, like, that's one of the beautiful things I remember about us in those stages. You and I were not like so angry at each other. You and I took the stance of, we just got to get through it. We just got to get through it.
A lot of coffee.
We just did our best, okay.
Yeah, and it was, and they were a handful because they were very active young kids that fought a ton. And I just remember like I just want 30. I would just sleep in the driveway. I would pull in the house when the kids were like 2 and 4, 1 and 2. You know, I would just pull in the driveway and I would just like close my eyes and put on the radio and just like try to get a nap. And sometimes she would catch me and she'd be like, "What are you doing? Get inside." And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, oh God, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble."
I mean, but you know, you're cutting yourself short here. You were every little league coach possible. You were so involved. You know, even being the friend, the fun guy, you were so involved. And God, I just read this thing that Bond wrote you, and it's so beautiful. I mean, you were an incredible father. You are to them. Mm-hmm. And they know that and feel that, and I can see it in how they talk about you. And
I'm really enjoying the
they
relationship
just like to
now.
tease you. They just like to tease
Well,
you in front of you.
I wonder where that came from. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, we definitely were the banter and teasing family, and you had to have thick skin in our family. But I definitely was more the butt of the jokes, for sure.
I know. Well, it's so easy.
Yeah,
Such
we
an
set
easy
ourselves
target.
up for that, though.
Yeah, well, we're the nice guys.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to take it, and we have to take it.
And we laugh at it. We laugh at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
My kids used to call Julie the puppet master, and I'd be like, "What do you mean by the puppet master?" Like, she can get you to do whatever she wants you to do. Like, I would make a decision, and then they'd be like, "Wait till I get a hold of Mom."
Yeah, exactly.
You know? It's like,
Well, that was my weather forecaster. You know, like I knew which way it was going. I got to know you read you so well. And, you know, with that, I knew how to talk to you and everything that goes with that. So, yeah, but I do think that if in my pain, I made it harder for you, or I made your journey of healing any more difficult, you know, I'm just so sorry for that, because, you know, I think back and, you know, I'm just sorry.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And, you know, what would you tell yourself? What would 50-year-old Julie tell 6-year-old Julie, knowing what you know now and with all the healings you have? You're looking at a picture of 6-year-old Julie. What would you tell that 6-year-old now, if you can go back in time and talk to that 6-year-old?
Oh gosh, just how incredible that would make me cry. I mean, I'd like just to love yourself. You know, self-love is so important. What that means on so many different levels, and truly to love yourself and to forgive yourself for things. Because it also with getting to understand my emotions, it was getting to understand my inner dialogue. And God, that was so harsh. My inner dialogue was so harsh, and I realized that. And so I would say something to her to help her with that, to be gentle with herself, to be kind to herself, to love herself.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know for me, I'm my own worst critic, and I could really go down a rabbit hole of beating myself up, like we just talked about with the divorce. I could do it in business. I can do it, you know, dating. I can look myself in the mirror going, "God, you're just not good looking. You're overweight. You're a terrible lover." Like, I could just go down. It's so easy for me to criticize myself and make myself feel bad, and so hard for me to give myself approval and validation and accolades. But it's so natural to like just cut myself down.
even while enjoying yourself.
Right.
Like I bet you did that at the Cardinals game.
Yeah.
While you're not supposed to be enjoying yourself. Why do they have better seats
Yeah.
than me?
Yeah,
There is no better seats than.
I actually didn't do that there because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody. But at the Suns games, I do that. Like the Suns games, I don't enjoy myself because I look around all the people on the floor going, I'm the poorest guy here. I'm the dumbest guy here. I'm the ugliest guy here. And I just compare and despair.
Mm-hmm. Even when we're
Compare and
supposed to
despair.
be enjoying ourselves,
Yeah.
we can talk ourselves out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a constant reminder that you need to be giving yourself constant love, showering love on yourself. The answer is always self-love, because when you are just, when people say it's calling you like filling your cup, that's when you serve the world. That's when you can look out into the world and be a loving, giving person, when you feel that for yourself. It starts inside first.
What would you want our boys, 21 and 23, what would you want them to know? If you had to just give them like 1 or 2 paragraphs for the rest of their lives, what would you tell them right now that they can carry with them the rest of their lives?
I mean, I think it would be the same advice that I would give to myself. And I think I wrote something to Gray once, and I'm trying to remember the words now, but, you know, it was always choosing to make himself happy, because when he's in joy, when he's happy, then, then we're happy for him. You know, I felt like he was always trying to, even though he would rebel against it, I think he was trying to people please he's trying to people please others. And so I wrote him something about choosing for himself always. And so I would probably tell both of them that, Bond as well. But the self-love is just, I can't say enough about it.
You know, you used to, when we were married, and you probably still say it, I just don't hear you say it as often, but you used to always say this, and I don't know if you realize it, but it's on all of our coins in AA. But you used to always say, to thy own self be true.
I would say, know thyself.
To know thyself, you know. Know thyself and to thy own self be true. And to me, it's like, I love that, but I have no idea what the self is. Like, who is this self? Mm-hmm. Who is this? I know what the body and the flesh of the self is, but what is this self? What is Todd? Who is Todd? Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like, I had no idea at 21 or 23 who Todd is. I didn't know until I was 52 years old. And still going through this divorce, have some semblance of who is Todd. You know, and I think it takes the pain and suffering and trying to recover from that pain and suffering to figure out who I am. Because I need to know who I'm not before I know who I am.
I'm also going through the part, though, where I'm like learning to let go of the old stories, not hold on to them so much. Sometimes, I hear myself repeating stories, and it comes up in conversation, and I think I'm done with that. I'm ready to put that down. I'm ready to not have that be my story anymore. I'm sure it taught me, things teach me lessons, but I'm ready to just not constantly be picking that up.
Well, I think we're totally changing the story of who we are, who we think we are, and who we, what we tell ourselves about who we are. And like this morning, I was talking to Richard, and I was telling him, like, I'm really enjoying pulling back a little bit from my fellowship in the program and getting a perspective of what my life looks like in that fellowship. And until I pull back and have some solitude and look back at it, I don't know what it is when I'm in it, because life's so fast. Yeah. And as I get older, I think I'm more careful with my relationships. I'm more careful where I spend my time, and I'm more careful of what I want to do with my life. Mm-hmm. And
it's like you're also the observer.
Yeah.
You're pulling back so you can watch yourself and see and look at it from such a more of a non-judgmental or a neutral position.
And for me, that's very hard because I'm so fast. I'm going so fast in life. Yeah. But when I do that and stop, I get a really good perspective. Like, okay, I'm going to change this part of my life. I'm going to change these relationships. I'm going to do more of this, less of that. Mm-hmm. And it creates a sort of peace and a sort of just balance in my life. Like, I've been doing this at my house. I've been playing drums and guitar a lot more when I'm home alone. Mm-hmm. And it's like
drums
and guitar. And it's like, it's just amazing how it feeds my soul. And it just makes me happy. Or do you find you're doing some things at your house that you've never done before that are creating a new sense of freedom within yourself? First of all, I constantly have music on in the background, and it's not always the same music. It's just not 70s classic.
I do that, but then I do, all just different kinds of music. And then also my friend got me this enormous set. It's like a set of 7 singing bowls. That's really hard to say. Set of 7 singing bowls, the crystal bowls that and I just love doing that. I love playing with that. And so that's something I'm doing more.
Is that hard to do?
I'm getting better at it. I'm watching some YouTube videos because there's different ways to do it, and you can actually scratch it so you get that like nails on the chalkboard thing, and that. So I'm learning how to not do that. But so
I've been doing
beautiful.
a few sound baths recently. I just did one up at that spa that I got you a gift certificate at, and I loved it. I fell asleep. I woke up. I fell asleep. It was
know.
It's just so soothing.
I know. Yeah.
There's a vibration that really I connect with.
So I've been playing around with that right now. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you got a cat.
I do. We were always dog people, but I got a little kitty. Oh my God, she's so cute, and the boys are obsessed. And now I got Gray. Well, I got Gray a cat. It's the brother first, and I spent 2 days with him, and I became so attached to him. So that's when I got his sister, and so now I feel like we're cat people.
Yeah. I always said that our dogs, Marcel and Gigi, taught my boys unconditional love and compassion like Julie and I could never do. Like we would bang our heads against the wall trying to teach them like compassion and empathy and unconditional love, and like they're not going to get it.
Oh,
and then these
and
dogs would
they
would protect them. They would make sure they're safe. They were like, don't hurt the dog. Don't kick the dog.
It did.
Yeah.
You're so right about that.
Yeah.
Whatever we said just flew in one ear and out the other, but
They felt responsible, for the dog's well-being and for the love.
Yeah, so beautiful.
Well,
So,
we're coming
yeah.
up on the time. Anything else you want to bring up or talk about?
I mean, I just, I just think about, the whole trajectory of everything that we've gone through and then where we are now. And earlier I was talking about that vision that I held of just that we could be something different and something better. And, and I can't talk about that without talking about Alex, because I could hit the lottery with her. I mean, she's so amazing. And she makes me feel.
She fits in pretty well with the family.
She makes me feel, like a part of the family, and your mom and dad as well. And I just am so proud of that. It's probably the thing, besides the boys, what I'm most proud of in this life, that we were able to go from such pain, navigate through the divorce and all our emotions and all the healing, and here we are. I think maybe we always kind of would have family events, but now I feel like we really feel it, like we really are just at such a place of peace and happiness, and everything just sits well. At least that's how I feel from my perspective. I'm just so proud of us that we were able to create this.
Yeah, there's a lot of unconditional love without attachment and strings attached. Before it was contrived almost because, we had to do this stuff and we were an attachment and a marriage. And now it's like more out of like free love and just enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
And for those listening, Alex is Todd's wife.
Yep.
Current wife. So how about that? When people are healthy, you can live and coexist well, even exes and current, and that's a
we
beautiful
all live
thing
next
to
to each other.
And you're all
We
and you do
literally
Thanksgiving
live within
together.
a 9-iron
I know.
by each other. Yeah.
I mean, what a beautiful thing to hear, right?
Oh, yeah.
From a woman that you spent 22, 24 years of your life with, that she embraces who you're with now, knows that it's healthy and works well together, and you guys spend the holidays and time together.
Mm-hmm.
Question, have you helped her learn how to predict the weather? Has she come to you and say, hey, help me with how to predict or read this guy?
No, but I did talk to her before they got married. We went out, and I think she was like, why are you being so nice? She couldn't understand it. And I was like, I'm just, I'm so thankful for you. You love Todd and he loves you, and, you're allowing me to be involved too. I'm just so thankful. She couldn't, it was hard for her to understand that at first, but then she did. So the advice I gave her was not to know how to predict the weather, but to never forget how important she is, and never to forget to lose focus on herself and what she brings and how important she is to herself and the world, to the family, everything. And so she can, I'm sure she's got her own ways of reading the weather.
Yeah. She's early in training, so I got some more work to do with her. But yeah.
She is awesome.
Yeah.
I really love her. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Julie, for coming on. I love you dearly. You are still my best friend, and
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you came into my life, and I'm sure we have other encounters in future lives coming. So
This is really
stay
fun.
tuned.
I like this.
Yeah, well, we'll have you back on after you get back from Egypt and have some more journeys in your life. And we will see you next week on the laundry list. And please
guys.
be nice to my friend today.